Hello everyone. Tonight we explore the story of King George III, the monarch whose reign shook the world. He sat upon a throne built on oceans of conquest, where the sun never set on his empire, yet shadows of rebellion and betrayal haunted his rule. From brutal wars in the colonies to rivers of blood spilled on battlefields, his crown bore the weight of both glory and humiliation. Enemies rose against him with fire and fury, while allies whispered treachery in his very court. Torn between the dream of absolute power and the nightmare of collapsing dominion, George faced decisions that carved scars into history itself. Behind the crown was a man of fierce will but tormented mind, wrestling with paranoia, madness, and the fear of losing everything. His story is one of power unmatched, justice harshly delivered, and an empire trembling on the edge of survival. George William Frederick was born on June 4, 1738, at Norfolk House in London, into the heart of the British aristocracy, yet under the weight of dynastic expectation. His father, Frederick, Prince of Wales, was heir apparent, but constantly at odds with King George II, creating a tense and divided household. His mother, Princess Augusta of Saxe-Gotha, was deeply protective and ambitious, determined to mould her son into a future king, despite the fractured court around them. The infant George grew in a climate where affection was mixed with political calculation, and every gesture toward him carried the weight of royal succession. From the beginning, his life was entangled in the brutal game of power and inheritance, where even a child's cradle was a battlefield. George's early years were shadowed by family tragedy and public intrigue. His father died suddenly in 1751, when George was just 12, leaving the boy as heir to the throne far earlier than anyone expected. The death brought both immense sorrow and crushing responsibility, forcing him to navigate life without the guidance of a father figure. His mother, widowed and increasingly isolated within the royal court, tightened her hold on George, shielding him from influences she deemed corrupt, but also suffocating him with her expectations. This loss hardened the young prince, teaching him from an early age that survival in royalty meant enduring grief while carrying the hopes of a nation upon his shoulders. Even as a child, George was noted for his seriousness and sense of duty, traits unusual for one so young. Tutors and courtiers observed his keen mind, his quiet reserve, and the way he rarely gave in to childish frivolity. While other children played, George often sat silently, listening to conversations about politics, war, and power with wide, attentive eyes. His mother reinforced the belief that he was destined, aired for greatness, repeatedly telling him that his future lay not in indulgence, but in strength of character. These lessons sank deeply into his soul, cultivating both discipline and a rigid worldview that would later define his reign, for better and for worse. The royal household was not a place of warmth, but of constant scrutiny, and George learned to mask his emotions behind a stoic exterior. Servants, nobles, and foreign dignitaries all studied him, whispering their judgments, watching for signs of weakness or brilliance. He grew up in richly furnished rooms, surrounded by symbols of immense wealth and power, yet the atmosphere was often cold and politically